All right, mathletes, so let's look at these composition of functions with numerical inputs because we want you handling these the way that Dr. Math shoots threes. All right, that's not what we want. Oh. Anyways, so let's look at the big idea here. All right, so what is the big idea? So let's look at what we have. We're going to have some input. All right, I'll just call it X for now so we could wrap our heads around it. And what we're going to do is we're going to plug it into a function. In this case, the way we laid out things here, the first function we're going to plug X into, I should say the only function we're going to plug X into is this inner function, this function G, right? So that's our first function. And remember what a function is. Think of it like a set of instructions. It's going to tell us to do something with that input, right? So we're going to have this input and we're going to operate on it. We're going to either multiply it by something, add it to something, divide by something. The instructions, right? That's what a function does. It says, give me an input and do this with that input, right? And what comes out of there is your output. So what's going to come out of here is your output. Because right now I don't have a number, we're just going to say the output is g of x, right? So g of x is the output. And so now what you do is that output, we're going to take that output and whatever that is, then we're going to plug it into our next function. In this case, our next function that we're going to be using is this outside function that we're calling f of x, right? And f of x is going to tell us exactly what to do with this new input. So now this g of x becomes the input for this new function here, right? And so whatever comes out of there, that's what we call f of g. All right, so that may sound confusing. So let's go ahead, let's look at some functions and let's get our hands dirty, but we're going to have this image right in the back of our minds as we're walking through this. All right, so follow me. All right, mathletes, so what we really want to get down is this notation, because the process itself isn't going to be hard, but usually the trouble in math is figuring out what are they asking me to do here. All right, so we want to make sure that you're set. So what this is telling us to do, right, is we're going to take our input, this 6, right, and we're first going to plug it into one of these functions. And the way I want you to think about this is just like our order of operations, right? What we're going to do is we're going to work on this inner parentheses first. So what I'm only going to concentrate on is that inner parentheses. I first want to know what the heck is g of 6, right? Because that reminds us, oh, wait a minute, I know how to find a g of 6. What that means is I go to this g function here, and wherever I see x, I know I'm going to plug in 6, right? So we want to make sure you understand that, because we don't want you to end up looking like this fella over here. All right, so let's go ahead and let's plug in that 6. All right, so I like to put parentheses there, especially when things get a little bit more complicated down the road, right? We have these good habits. So 6 minus 4 is 2. So that's our output, right? And just like our map said, our diagram, we take that output and now we plug it into our next function. So notice here, g of 6, we said that's 2. So let's rewrite this. So now we have f of, not g of 6, but f of 2, because 2 is the same thing as g of 6. So now we're going to go ahead and take our function f, and wherever we see x, we're going to plug in 2. So let's go ahead and let's do that now. So now let's take f, and we're going to plug in 2, right? And we get 2 squared plus 2 times x. And so we end up with 4 plus 4 and end up with 8. Just that easy. So our final answer here is 8. So again, what I want to walk you through is we're going to have a bunch of different notation that I'm going to be using so that you get comfortable with all of this. So there's part A. Let's look at question B. All right, so notice for question B here, we're using the same two functions, but what we always have to do is pay attention to the order. Now G's on the outside and F is on the inside, right? So again, same thought process. We always want to focus on that inner function first, right? And again, you're doing this when we're evaluating, right? When we have some numerical constant, we have some constant in here. This is our process, right? So I'm going to take F here and I'm going to plug in -3. -3. So we take this 3, this -3, and we take that function F wherever we see X. We know we're going to plug in the -3. All right. So we get -3 squared plus 2 times -3. All right. So now we just use our order of operations. So -3 squared is 9. 2 times -3 is -6, right? So we end up with 3. So notice we're not done yet. All we found was that f of -3, right? This that's in here is the same thing as 3. So let's go ahead and replace all this with 3. So let's do that. So now we're left with g of 3. So we took care of that inner function. And now let's polish this off, g of 3. So let me write that down here, g of 3. And so since we're looking at the function g, here it is here, you're going to take your input and you're going to subtract 4. What's our input in this case? Well, it's 3. So all we're going to do is take that 3 and we're going to subtract 4 and we get -1. And there's our final answer right there. It's that easy. But you have to make sure you understand the language, right? The notation is key. It's almost as important as smashing that like button and subscribing. All right, follow me to part C. All right, so part C here, we have some different notation, but again, you always need to make sure you understand the definitions that are provided and understand, what they mean. So your definition states that this is the same exact thing as taking that outer function, which is f, the first one they give you, and what are you plugging into it? Well, you're going to plug in g, in this case, g of 0, right? So again, be very comfortable with all the different looks that these functions, these compositions can take on, right? So make sure you know that this is the exact same thing as this. Right, so again, notation is key or else you're going to be lost in terms of what are they asking me to do. Alrighty, folks. So we already know the process. We're going to first start with that inner function, which is g of 0. So we go and we look at, well, what is g of 0? Well, let's plug it in. 0 minus 4. So parentheses 0 minus 4, which is just -4. So just like before, now we know g of 0 is this -4 right here. So we are left with f of -4. All right, and now that's easy enough because I'm going to go grab my function f. And what am I going to plug in? That -4. And check out what I did here. You got to be careful. And, oh, I wrote it. I guess I was careful. Thought I missed it, left it out. So we're going to plug in -4 into our function here. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to have -4 squared plus 2 times -4. And what I wanted to highlight is you got to use those parentheses. If I don't put those parentheses right here, my answer comes out different. It comes out to be -4 squared without parentheses, which would in turn be -16. And that would be a totally different answer. So you got to be careful, right, when you're using these order of operations. So we end up with 16 minus 8, which leaves us with -8. It's that easy, folks. So again, make sure language is key, notation is key. Make sense? All right, mathletes, so it's quiz time. It's your turn. Press pause and I want you to solve this problem, right? No shortcuts, write down all the steps. Let's see what you get. All right, so let's see what you got. And I know some of you didn't press pause. I'm watching you. So we're gonna go ahead, and the G is our outside function. Man, how do you know that? Dr. Math knows these things. So G is our outside function, F is our inner function, right? So we have F of 5. And I want to give you a chance to practice it, because again, if I'm doing all the work, right, pretty soon you're gonna think you could shoot threes just like Dr. Math. No, Dr. Math spends hours working on his game, right? That's what I'm trying to help you with, your game. So again, don't do it the lazy way. Try it out, and then let's see if we get the same answer, right? This is an opportunity to learn. So all I'm doing is, wherever I see that function f, just as we said before, we plugged in 5, right? So we plugged in 5. Now let's evaluate this. So we get 25 plus 10, which is 35. All right, what do we do with that 35? Well, let's go ahead and let's rewrite this. Some of you are gonna not have to write the step, but again, as we're learning it, I find it very helpful. So f of 5 here, we just found that f of 5 is the same thing as 35. So let's replace it. And now we see we're going to go to that function g, and we're going to plug in 35. So we get 35 minus 4, and we end up with 31. So again, it's that easy when you know what you're doing. So if you don't know, comment down below. Let us know what kind of videos we can make for you, because again, we're here to help you guys out. So don't forget to share this video with a friend, like, subscribe, and we'll see you mathletes in the next video. Peace.